Hey everybody, welcome to The Early Edge, a mentorship podcast for next generation leaders where we share insights we wish we had learned earlier in our careers.
We want to equip you to learn more, grow faster, and thrive in both your work and personal life. I'm Jay.
And I'm Jeff. Let's get into today's episode.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Early Edge Mentorship Podcast. We're going to do a little bit of a different format today, and it really is coming from a conversation that Jeff and I want to have about a potential business opportunity, and we thought we might as well record it and perhaps let our listeners understand the thought process and how we approach things. Both of us are entrepreneurs. Both of us are business advisors and consultants now. We have been asked through launching the podcast to maybe share some ideas of, what's it like to start a business? What is it like to run your own company? And so this is a little bit of an exploration of potential collaboration between us and our firms. It may not turn into anything. It might turn into something, and it really is fresh and new. And so we decided that we would just record our dialogue around this opportunity and see if it added any value to our listeners.
Jay, you literally emailed me last night and said, hey, I've got a business idea. You were in a situation where this idea came up, and maybe you'll tell a little bit more about that. But Sure. Just for the audience, this is something literally we have not discussed.
Not at all. So I'll give some context, and this is now where we shift from show to conversation. So I did a keynote address on organizational effectiveness last fall in Tokyo, and someone in that audience is a member of a professional services association that is primarily based in the U.S. That person reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing a keynote at our industry conference in September this fall? So I'm going to be doing 3 different talks on all in the umbrella of organizational effectiveness for professional services industry. And one of the conversations is going to be about future-proofing your firm. So how do we protect our firm against all the things that are coming in our industry? So that's the context. And when I do keynotes, I interview audience members in advance. I want to know what's going on. What do they care about? What do they want to hear? Because I don't want, I don't have prepackaged content that I just go and, present to whoever wants to hear it. I listen to what they have happening, and then I shape the content to their environment. And I heard some very consistent themes in these interviews overwhelmingly. And one of them was, oh my gosh, we have a talent shortage. And oh my gosh, what is technology going to do to our industry? And can we merge those to use technology to solve our talent shortage and get more efficient and more effective in how we serve our clients? And so I heard that in every conversation. And I then followed up and said, do you know where to go to get guidance on this problem around technology? And of course, we all know AI is on fire. It's the rage. It's real. It's fake. It's confusing. It's overwhelming. It's scary. So being the entrepreneur and engaging with executive teams now and hearing these questions, it just occurred to me that there may be an opportunity to provide a service offering around AI or technology adoption advisory services. So I'll stop there and fire questions.
Yeah, AI is certainly a hot topic. I think it's also still, I won't say misunderstood, but not fully understood, meaning companies are all hearing about AI. Most people are trying AI in the simplest of senses. Some business systems have added AI, mostly generative AI, into those platforms.
And what's generative AI?
It's the capability of a system to generate some type of content, whether it be an image or text or something like that. A good example is in many of your ERPs, we talked about enterprise resource planning systems in an episode earlier, will now have, when you create an item and you put in some information about that item, one of the pieces of information you need to put in is the sales description. And you can put in SKU numbers and all these other elements and then have the system actually write the description for you. It'll go out and find all the information about that product on the web and write a good description for you. The other great example is for anybody that uses Adobe Photoshop, if you've got an image that maybe you want to remove something, or maybe you need to extend an image because it isn't the right size, Photoshop has awesome generative AI built in now where you can highlight a section and have it extend the image and create pixels that don't exist, and it does a phenomenal job.
Wow. Okay. So
that's
good.
That's generative.
Well, and that little discussion about generative is how I feel many business leaders feel, which is I know of this thing. I have no idea where it can serve us. I have no idea what's safe. I have no idea who's created certain applications that already exist, or I have no idea where I go to get guidance on what to do.
Right.
And I think there's an opportunity, at least in the short term, as advisors and consultants who are working with executive teams, to provide some answers for them and some guidance. And I don't mean go and build necessarily, maybe, go build their applications that solve their manufacturing process issue, but simply saying, how do we go about doing anything about this? What do we do? I think I know there's a need. What I don't know is, do I want to try to meet the need?
One way to think about AI, and I think part of the reason this is a challenge for companies and they need help, is because AI is so broad. There's so many solutions that AI can bring. And I'd go back to the late 80s, early 90s when most people got on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that long ago. So for a company, think back in the late 80s, early 90s to say, we need to get on the internet. What does that mean? That can mean so many things. Get on the internet. We need to start using AI. That is so broad.
Yes.
And there's so many ways you can do it. That's where getting advice and help can really make sure that it's applicable and relevant and impactful to the business and what specifically they can use it for.
Yeah. So you, as a technologist and a marketer, help organizations think about business strategy, market strategy. So let's use your expertise. Fire the questions to me that you would ask a client who said, we're considering a new service offering or product. What would you be asking?
Yeah, I think the first question I always ask is, what problem or unmet need is this solving?
Okay.
So is there an unmet need in the marketplace?
Yep.
Or a problem that this is solving? I think you've probably already set it up, what that is.
Yep. So what do we do? And by the way, I have a day job and I'm busy. So I don't know what to do. I don't know how to go. So I think the problem is clear. I think there's an unmet need.
Right.
What's that?
Next question I'll typically ask is, who's the target market?
Good. It's great. And you and I serve a similar market size as our core. And I describe my target market in bullseye, sort of target, who's at the center, like absolute lay down. They are my perfect client. And then, I'll go outside into the outer rings where opportunistically it makes sense. But for me, and maybe why this is appealing to me, is I think this target market is also my target market, which is privately held, mid-market, 25, 50 million in revenue and higher, up to billions of dollars, but privately held. And the reason I separate that, $5 billion can be publicly traded or privately held. Privately held businesses have generally a longer horizon, a time horizon in which they're making their decisions. Publicly traded organizations have to report their earnings quarterly, and the opinions of investors in Wall Street matters a ton. So they do some things sometimes that are short-sighted because they care about the next quarterly earnings report. Privately held organizations don't have to do that, so they can often think on larger time horizons. Now, related to this opportunity, I think the target doesn't get up into the billions because they probably have resources and people with expertise to be dealing with this stuff. So I think in this case, the target market is privately held, 20 million to 300 million in revenue-ish, and they have the scale to need to do something. They don't have the in-house expertise to do something about it.
That's perfect. And there's benefit because it overlaps well with your current target market of Alta Impact.
Yeah, correct.
So you're not have to go after a totally new target market. And what you just defined is the who. Target market, probably pretty obvious. That's the who. And it helps define the group of people or companies and the shared characteristics. And you defined a few of those, as you mentioned. Many times those are demographic, behavioral, psychographic, geographic,
industry,
things like that.
Et cetera. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So that's good. One of the next questions I'll ask is, what's the opportunity size? Now, this one, I think fairly obvious, AI, the markets you just mentioned, it's a pretty broad opportunity size. That may be good, or it may be challenging. It may be too broad. So a question that people contemplating business ideas will have to think about is, do I need to narrow it so I can target better and reach better? And there's a great book, I think it's Jeffrey Moore, I'm going a little bit back here, called Crossing the Chasm. If you're thinking about a business or a business idea, even in an established business, expanding your product or service set, Crossing the Chasm is a phenomenal book to consider in these situations. Yeah. Crossing the chasm means come up with a clear definition so that you can go after a very specific target and then expand from there after you get a subset of customers.
Yeah, and that's great wisdom. And in this case, for Alta Impact / Red Dog Advisors, the market is broad, and we would probably want to create a narrow focus. That would take a little bit of research, but top of mind, because I'm speaking at a professional services conference, and I know their labor shortage is, the expertise to deliver what they deliver is in demand. There isn't enough capacity, and they're all wondering how are they going to staff the future. Professional service firms come to mind as a potential narrowing. You could go and say manufacturing. You could do by industry, by geography, by revenue bands. It's a great exercise.
That'll help you narrow down and determine what's the center of that bullseye that we're going to go after first.
Yeah. Sharpens your messaging, your problem statement, your value proposition.
That's right. From there, you can go to positioning, messaging, and targeting strategies.
Yeah, great.
That are more refined.
Great.
In that audience, as you think about the problem that you said, hey, here's an unmet need, here's a challenge that needs to be solved, you can start to narrow in on what the actual service is. That sometimes will narrow that audience for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the initial concept was, instead of developing AI-driven solutions for them, the first thing is technology strategy. How should we think about this? How should we go determine what applications we ought to do, or how we should leverage this technology, or if it makes sense for us? Or cybersecurity is a big issue. What can we do and can't we do? Who in the industry already has an offering for our business? Let's say we're a donut manufacturer, or I guess you call those bakeries, and we want to examine this. Is there some business that's already created an AI suite for bakeries? How do I go find that out? And I know you advise organizations on ERP selection, so it feels like a similar type of an offering is, what should our AI strategy be? And for an organization that doesn't have that capability in-house and has enough going on where they appreciate that this is something they ought to consider, there may be an opportunity to provide that.
A couple episodes ago, we talked about digital maturity and cognitive agility.
Yeah.
I even think in this case, a company that doesn't really know where they want to apply AI yet, even if it doesn't come to an immediate, concrete way that they're going to apply AI right now, it certainly prepares them for the future, and they improve and increase their digital maturity. They can then better plan and prepare for what they may want to do at some point in the future.
Yeah, and that feels like there's real value to be given. And you and I both are motivated by positive impact of our clients. We're not just doing this for revenue. It's, what is a need that we can help meet? It's a legitimate need. And for me as a business owner, I'm struggling with, how do I leverage this? What parts of my business can I automate? What parts of my services and my intellectual property will be automated by others that it could be a threat to my business? So I am wondering what to do about it. So I feel the emotion that I know many prospective clients are feeling, and deciding how to go about it it's a responsibility of senior leaders to have a point of view about this. And right. I don't think many are equipped to go there, and I think we can support them. When you and I are introduced to a client, we often do assessments, which is, what is your current state? You tell us what you think your need is. You tell us what's going on, and then we'll assess. It feels like to me that we could produce an AI application to drive assessments on AI capability. So almost demonstrating the value by showing the tool we would use to do the assessment. So you could do a technology or an AI maturity assessment leveraging technology.
I use AI every day, and of course it's for some generative. It's for some understanding or information. I'm trying to better understand a topic. I've used it for writing a bit of code, here and there. But in a mid-market business or an enterprise business, the impact of a technology change like AI can mean millions of dollars.
Yes.
In either cost savings or revenue generation, right? It's a big deal. And so for those companies to have a strategy around this is important. I'm actually going to be speaking at a conference in Phoenix in September. It's a conference focused on the manufacturing and distribution industry. Jim Collins is the keynote.
Nice.
I'm going to be speaking. I have a very small piece compared to what Jim Collins has.
For those of you, Jim Collins, author of Good to Great and Great by Choice, two phenomenal, older now books, but two phenomenal books on what makes organizations great.
Yeah. At some point, we've talked about doing an episode on our top 5 books.
That'll hit.
Good to Great would definitely...
That's going to hit.
Yeah, make my top 5. That's a fantastic book. One of the topics at the conference is AI. And this is a perfect audience of people that are hearing about AI. Many of them are businesses that are between $50 million and $1 billion, so kind of right in the target market you mentioned.
Yep.
And they're trying to ask that same question. How do I apply AI in my business? How can it be more than just a little piece of the business? How can it make a bigger difference either on cost savings or revenue generation?
Yeah. And the way I think about it, and I would lay this over top the framework I use to assess organizational performance. It's a set of competencies and an order of priority that I use. The first one is leadership and team dynamics. How effective is this leadership team at running the business? Because if it's not good, none of the rest really matters because it won't be sustainable. But let's say the executive team capability and dynamics are pretty good, or we got them moving in the right direction. Then we go to strategy and vision. Where are we trying to go and how are we going to get there? After that, we go to management operating system, which is how do we run the business? What tools, techniques, processes, meetings, data do we use to govern and run the business? And we have to get that strategy execution methodology going well. And then it goes around to people, process, systems, data, et cetera. You could go through that competency model and say, where can technology help us? Where are the parts where we're strong? Where are the parts where we're weaker? Where could we do more effectively? I just think there's a thing there, and the reason you and I are talking about it is twofold. One, I may see if your Phoenix thing doesn't overlap with my talk in September's in Napa, both great locations. Mm-hmm. Perhaps we co-present this future ready on technology. That might be cool. Second thing is, should we build an offering? Should we actually put it on our websites, figure out what our process is? We both kind of understand our pricing structures. I see these fitting kind of inside both of those already. What am I missing?
As far as my opinion on whether there's an opportunity and an unmet need, I think the answer is yes. The next need for us in developing an offering is putting down on paper what specifically is the pitch and the problem we're solving, so that when somebody hears or sees this, they recognize, yes, that's us, and the assessment is priced at a point where it adds value and paints a picture for where to go from this assessment to execution.
Yeah, so I think we should do that.
I think it's a great idea.
Thanks for hearing my entrepreneurial brainstorm. They come to me often, but usually don't have all those questions kind of pre-answered. It often is a good idea when you don't have to work that hard to justify why it's a good idea.
Yeah. One last thought. We both bring different perspectives on topics like this, AI specifically. My mind naturally first goes to the use of AI within the technology the company's using. And of course, even in the mid-market and enterprise space, many of the technologies that they're using are so industry specific. They're smaller providers and they don't have much AI built into those platforms. So they have to go outside, and that gets to be a headache sometimes. So there's some pros and cons to talk about that. My bet is that your first tendency is the use of AI within certain functions for maybe leadership, coaching. I don't know. What's the first tendency your mind goes to when you think of how your clients would use it?
Great question. And this is maybe a marketing challenge I have, and you just said it, which is, hey, maybe it's about leadership and coaching. My business is oriented to organizational performance transformation. It just so happens that leadership is a primary problem. So I do a lot of leadership advisory work and leadership development and coaching, but it is not the core of my business. My business is holistically, what are the levers to drive your business to higher levels? So it can be strategy, it can be process, it can be technology and systems. And I guide leadership in making those decisions strategically. 80% of my engagements have a component of helping them be better at leadership. The real impact is once they get a basic capability in leadership and their team dynamics are decent, then we can go do strategic planning, operational strategy, and fix stuff that makes scalable change.
The value of the idea, and I know we want to wrap up here, the value of the idea is so relevant and meaningful to every area of the business.
Yes.
I mean, just off the top of my head, it could be better understanding compensation within the HR team.
Absolutely.
Automatically producing quarterly board reports based on the data in your financial systems.
So data is a huge piece, is how to aggregate the volume of information we already have more effectively and efficiency. Every function has data they need to use and leverage. Some of them don't have systems that provide good data, but that's a different conversation. That's where Red Dog Advisors comes in. But data is a big one. And then creativity, process optimization is the next one, is how do we simplify or automate the things we do all the time? There's huge opportunity. The question is, do we want to go about it? How do we go about it? And the piloting of it within our current client network is an easy way to start it. I've 5 active clients right now. I go to the CEOs of those and just say, hey, let us come in. We won't charge you for it. And let's do a quick high-level assessment on your AI strategy and where you're headed with it. We might learn some stuff.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, well, we'll keep talking about this, but we don't have time to do it in the episode, so we'll do it offline.
All right, well, if we publish this one, we hope listeners enjoyed it, and we'll report back, I don't know, in a couple months and give you an update on what we decided to do on this idea.
I think it's great. I think that is another example of an early edge for the week.
Thanks for listening to The Early Edge, a mentorship podcast for next generation leaders. If you have feedback or would like to submit questions or a topic idea, email us at earlyedge@reddogadvisors.com
or earlyedge@altaimpact.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please follow, subscribe, rate, and review. See you next time.